Hi guys and welcome. This is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Hello, this is Jen Gaeta Siciliano, your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast. The following episode was recorded on October 26th, a week before the election day of 2025, when a blue wave tore through the voting count. After the voters had made their disapproval of the Republican Party clear, the shutdown, in effect since early September, finally came to an end on November 13th, signaling the longest shutdown in American history. The Democrats did not claim a huge victory except to make the American people realize that they are on the side of health care for all Americans, while the Republicans did everything they could to tear it away. The voters made their opinion known. For this 5-year anniversary special, I was happy to bring back my therapist, a Jungian dream analyst, with whom I had recorded before. During my first season, I published that episode while insurrectionists were attacking the nation's capital. I couldn't think of anyone better to bring back to the show for my anniversary during Thanksgiving Day weekend but Warren, who has a keen insight for shedding light on Trump's psychology using archetypes and symbols, which is so relevant in the present moment. Warren helped me through a long stretch of tapering off antipsychotics, and I am pleased to share his wisdom with you today regarding the state of our nation and its leader. I want to get into this conversation as quick as possible. And one of the things, Warren, thank you for coming on the show again.
Thank you. My pleasure. Looking forward to it. Been doing my homework.
Yeah. We actually did a podcast together, and I want the audience to know the title of that one. It was actually the 7th one I've ever done in season 1.
Yeah.
And it was called Exploring the Dream Realm with Warren Falcon, Jung, the Unconscious, and the Breakthrough. And I think it's so interesting that this particular podcast was actually published on January 6th. And as we were, looking at it together and speaking about it, the Capitol was being attacked by this, right-wing agenda. And so we're going to kind of revisit that. Here it is all these years later, we're still being kind of, traumatized as a nation. And, so much has happened since. So you had pointed me to view this podcast featuring Thomas Lavin. He has PhDs in both clinical psychology and moral theology, and a diploma in analytical psychology, which is the degree of a Jungian analyst. And he served as the chief clinical psychologist for the United States Army from 1977 to 81. The podcast was called The Trump Phenomena, and it was published back in 2016. So I'd like to put in the show notes a link to this so that anybody that wants to throw themselves into it further, it would be a great thing to refer to. And he starts off right away with discussing this comment that, it was like right before he got elected.
It was the year. It was 2015, and he was talking about running. It's before he announced, but Lavin and the host of that podcast, which you will want to watch again and again because it's so rich and dense, and it really does give you a context for what's going on. We'll try some today. But even then, I mean, people, the title of the article that he's quoting is the Il Duce, Trump's Il Duce, meaning Mussolini, the chin jutting phase. I call it that, it was over a year before the election.
Okay. And then one of the things that he points out was that Europe was getting nervous about a tweet that Trump put out there, and it was attributed to Mussolini.
Yeah.
And which is, it is better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a sheep. So, they've dealt with fascism. They saw that this was like very reminiscent. So it's just all comes together in this idea that, we are living in a time right now where Trump Trump's name is constantly on our lips, as Hitler's was during his time, because he touched upon this cultural complex that he brings up, Lavin. Can you talk a little bit about this cultural complex that America has today and just expand on that?
Okay, well, let's start with complex. You've heard, it's now in the vernacular. Jung has made his way with a few words, of very significant words, into the vernacular, as I said. But complex is one of them. I remember even my sister in high school, the word was being around, they were, high school kids. Well, she has a big complex,
Mm-hmm.
but he had infiltrated. The complex is a feeling toned energy, emotionally toned energy that we have. It's complex. The word complex literally means to kind of braided together, or to braided with, or to plait. But it's a kind of it's like a knot or a ball of thread, this kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing. But it's a complex. We have them in our psyche, and the psyche is the totality of, not our ego is not just the psyche, it's just the conscious part of the psyche. A little bitty tiny but significant part is you and I are talking here. The ego is I and you and me and all around, but the psyche is everything underneath, and Jung called that, as did Freud, the unconscious. Freud discovered, it's a funny thing to say it that way, but he discovered the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thousands of years of human culture have been aware of it. They wouldn't be drawing on cave walls and all of that stuff.
Right.
And of course, they were drawing archetypes, and their complexes. Is the saber-toothed tiger going to get me? Is the mammoth going to come and trample us to death? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the complex, we all have complexes. We come by it honestly. You take flesh and you're human, you're going to have complexes. They're not all bad. There's good sides of the complex and the negative side of the complex, as there is
Mm.
for archetypes. So not only do you have them and I have them, and then this becomes the stage. I say I'll repeat myself from the first podcast probably, but that I did with you. That we're never born into the first act. If you're going to use Act Two, Act One,
Yeah.
Two, and Three, we're born on the second act on the stage
Hmm.
in America, as we
Hmm.
say down south, in America or wherever, it could be Russia, wherever. We're born at the second act, and all the generations, all the DNA, all the family, all of these cultural complexes come with our being born into our personal parents, who were too born
Mm.
on a second state in the second act.
Yeah.
Then we're born into a nation, or you could be born on the other side of the volcano if you're somewhere else. And then there's those people on the other side, and they're all bad, and we'll kill their men, and we'll take their women and their animals and their kids, bring them, that kind of thing. So this is the complex. The complexes help us form and shape our lives, and the real key is to become conscious of them in a way, and how to work with them
Mm.
so that they're not living you. Because this is what Jung said. He says that, and he said this about archetypes. So complexes have archetypes. We'll get a little lecture here, but
Mm-hmm.
complexes, we'll call it the fifths here. The archetypes, I'm going to hold this book here. That this is all the archetypes, all the different um, feeling, all the different primal archetypes. Means arche means structure, like architecture, an
Mm-hmm.
arch, and type means typos, or the lay of the land. They're saying about a type of kind of thing. So there's different kinds of archetypes, but the archetypal psyche is underneath our ego and our personal psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Does this make any sense so far?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
but what's below? See, our personal psyche and unconscious is founded upon and grows out of and emerges from the collective unconscious, which would be the
Mm.
archetypal or the transpersonal, meaning the beyond personal unconscious. And that goes so deep, it gets down to what Jung calls the psychoid. We can't even fathom the mystery out of which all of this comes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like how it ends. He begins with talking about mystery, but it ends in kind of mystery, then opens up religion and spirituality and imagination and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
So a collective complex. Every nation, every group, people on that side of the volcano, people on this side of the volcano, inherits and is born into a collective psyche.
Mm-hmm.
And so the USA has certainly a very complex, meaning complex, knotted, because whether it was the original dream when they came over on the various ships and stuff, the dream of the nation, the unconscious dream, which has become more and more conscious, is that there would be people from all over the world, from all these other collective complexes.
Yeah.
And collective, all these second acts, which are,
Yeah.
we're all human, so we share birth, death, loving, all of that stuff, and family, and all the basic life stuff. Those are archetypes too. But we've got the melting pot, which is another archetype and a symbol. It's an alchemical vessel where all these things get cooked together, even the volatile stuff that doesn't go together. So it's a big stewy pot, and you have to hermetically seal it. And out of that alchemical container, there's a little spout, and you get everything coagulates, the little drops, because it gets more and more condensed and turns into little droplets. And then you get to that one pure agua permanens, the permanent water or the essence. That's the dream of, quote, a democracy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's messy, and we rarely get the distillation.
Right.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So it's problematic already.
Right. We talk about this as if everyone had this dream. But when people came here, that wasn't really the case. They might have been escaping tyranny from their place, but they kind of just thought that they were going to land here and start anew. And the first of the people who came over, were they even aware of who was here? Right? No one was.
No.
Yeah.
They thought they were going to India.
Yeah,
that's why they were called them Indians.
Yes.
They're not Indians.
I feel like a lot of the pushback today in our modern chaos that we're living in, it's almost like a lot of the people who are here had a different dream than many others. And it's some kind of problem with, I guess, our collective complex now, because we have two separate dreams.
That everybody comes over from their different nations and parts of the world with their different braids or complexes, or the second act, the stage, the inherited stuff, their deities, their values, their customs, and it all winds up here, not all at once, but it all winds up here on the entire continent, from the top down to the South Pole. No one living on the South Pole, but penguins, probably a good society to live in. I hear they're faithful to death and everything else. But I aver, I'm going to refer to birds since my last name is Falcon. But so it's a volatile mix.
Yeah.
But the land was big enough then, and there weren't millions coming over. It's the dribble in, and the people were leaving the second acts in Europe, let's say, and then there were people who were carted over as slaves or otherwise, from Africa and other places too. But all that comes with all of this psyche, all of the collective unconscious and the archetypes. And nations are lived by archetypes, and some archetypes are more prominent here, and some prominent are over there, and there can be archetypes that conflict. That are often one. The opposite archetypes have two sides at least. There's the positive energy side, the positive side of the archetype, and the negative.
Yeah.
Like we have God, presuming God's a good God, but we're already getting complicated because I'm not so sure about that.
Right.
But Jesus and the devil, or good and evil, the angel on this shoulder, the devil on this shoulder. But it's all archetypes of power and spiritual stuff, and energy. Where it's I refer to it like juju. There's that energy. The archetypes have a lot of energy. So all this is coming over into the continent. Now they were leaving. The fantasy was that, and it's a good fantasy because that comes from where? We don't make up the fantasy. It comes from the unconscious.
Right.
As our dreams do.
Yes.
Symbols, we don't make up. We're going to get to symbols because symbols are archetypally based too. But the symbols they're dreamed. I mean, we can't make them up.
Yes.
So they come from that transpersonal objective. Jung says the psyche, the unconscious, is objectively real, just as the moon is real and you and I are real. They're real differently. They're real, on another level, but they're very real. The psyche's real, whereas Freud said, no, the psyche is just your imagination. We have just this little personal level of the unconscious. There's nothing beneath that. So just as a little tracking device with the development of psychology, and Jung and Freud had a big disagreement about that, and that's why we have all these different schools. We were back to the melting pot, different schools of psychology, because
Yeah.
the psyche, if you haven't noticed, it has many different expressions, and it's not at war with any of them. I mean, there's
Right.
war. A war is an archetype, but it's all there. All bets are off, and that would get us into the trickster archetype, which we'll get into. But all these people came over, let's say from Europe, and down into South America and stuff, but into the North American continent. And they wanted to escape the king.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But as Young pointed out, well, yeah, they came over, but they brought the king inside of them with them.
Right.
This is the problem we have right now. See,
Yes.
we
Yes.
we got we got away from the king, but king royalty is archetypal. The king is the representative of, and the queen, all the royalty represent God on earth, whoever you believe the God to be. But in the West, it would be, up close to the Western God, a monotheistic God, maybe with three parts of it to get into the theology and stuff. But we have the king archetype, the
Yes.
royalty, the leadership archetype within us. And we haven't really dealt with the dark side of the king, which is why people left the king.
Right. And I feel like this is where we're at right now in terms of, obviously the No Kings, that was a great symbol. They came up with that with Indivisible. And now it's, let's keep going with that theme, right? Because obviously it hits something deep within all of us in America because we have this like collective unconscious that kind of brings us back to, oh yeah, we all ran away from the king. And yet I feel like right now you're seeing such a split between people who are still embracing the no king, we don't want a king in America, and then others who are somehow, getting pulled into revisiting that. And I'm wondering, why that is. I feel like America is losing its way, and maybe we can, what let me go, let's talk about the symbols, okay? Because
Okay.
Lavin describes that so much of what we see in America in terms of our complexes are the result of the loss of the symbolic life. So this daily, need of the soul, it's like we're sick of this daily grind. Obviously, a lot of poor Americans especially are captivated by Trump's trickery and lies. And why is it that they are, kind of succumbing to this feeling that, oh yeah, war against your neighbor is a better thing. Lavin, or he mentions that Young, or he I think he brings up a poem,
Yeah, he
talks about the actors in the divine drama of life and how people kind of like want to engage in that right now. Like what can we say about, the loss of some kind of deep symbolism that people can't connect to, and that's why they're connecting to Trump.
well, they're connecting to the king archetype,
Mm, mm, mm.
and the king connects to God, whether they say it or not, whether they believe in God or not. But a lot of folks in this country still are haunted by religion, and they practice religions and sincerely, I mean, really devotedly, but in a very concrete way. But what they do is they reduce the symbolic archetypal energy into a collective or a herd mind
Mm.
or a collective mind, and it becomes doctrinaire and dogmatic, and this is the only way. But that's being God Almighty. What Young
Hmm.
used that term a lot. So to track back a little bit, is like when the people came over from, let's just say, Europe now,
Hmm.
in the 1500s, and Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, that poem, this kind of thing that we all, or many of us, learned, at least when I was a kid in the
Yeah, I did
50s.
too.
But you brought over you brought the king with you, and but because you didn't want to be king and they wanted to rule themselves, and that's also a part of the human psyche. But the dream of America, and this came from Huey P. Long, who was the governor of Louisiana when my daddy, who was a Cajun, when my dad was born, Huey P. Long wrote, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy." This
Mhm.
is Huey P. Long, and when he was running for governor, his thing was every man and woman a king. That's the
Mm,
American dream.
yeah.
Every man a king, man including every human a king.
Yeah.
Now women and everything, but so that's the king archetype. But
Mm,
here, the problematic, we're back to the melting pot, the
mm-hmm.
alchemical container, where all these people from all over the world, and atheists and religious people, and different customs, different colors, different languages, and all that, are here in this one container called America, United States, often altered states, but United States of
Mm,
America are in this mix. The melting pot by its very nature is messy, but the
yeah.
alchemical vessels, that's why I like it. It is an alchemical thing. We're cooking. You cook
Yeah.
every day. So
Yeah.
we're cooking raw stuff. And many books have been written about the raw and the cooked from a philosophical and sociological and a religious view. We go from being raw sinners, meaning nature and our instinctual selves, and with our new brain growing here, we get laws and we get the Ten Commandments, or we get other codes, we get the Egyptian codes and all of that. But our consciousness has and does and is still evolving, and it's at conflict with
Mm-hmm.
our natural instinctual self. And Freud called it the id, you know.
Mm,
That's a common term now, the id, and then there's the ego, which is our personal self. We have to learn to deal with our hairy, jiggly meatedness all the time. And when you're an
mm-hmm.
infant, you have to learn how to pinch your sphincter and your bladder muscles and all of that stuff. And you don't hit Tommy in the head because he looked at your cookie. That's just you have to become more human. We're basically animal. We come in with that. That would be the id, the instinctual side. But welcome to the history of humans.
Yeah.
We have this new brain, which makes us special.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we're more special than others, but we have a unique problem, and that's back to the melting pot. Well,
Yeah.
we all share the id, or the instinctual side, and we all share all the inheritance of the evolution of consciousness into our various tribal customs and religions and belief systems. And this is going to be a place where everybody can have that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's a messy mix.
Yeah,
So you get,
definitely.
just jumping ahead, we get to the north and the south.
Mm-hmm.
The regional stuff, like that side of the volcano versus our side of the volcano, moral questions such as slavery
Yeah.
or not, this kind of thing. So this is all, we come by it honestly just because we took flesh, and we have evolved, and we have cultures, and we have cultural systems, and we've waged war. Actually, a lot of our evolution of consciousness has grown as our weaponry evolved. We
Yeah.
have more power, so we get to the power archetype. So I'm throwing out a lot here, but that's all in the mix, all in the melting pot
Right.
for millennia, for millions of years, as long as there were humans with our new brain. But but it gets back to tribal, my territory, your territory, we're going to take your territory. It's all the basic id stuff, or animal stuff.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
want land, we want wealth, we want power. So it's all in the melting pot. But the dream is this melting pot where all these people can come over. Back then, it was just basically it was going to be white people, and anybody else that came over were going to work for us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with our white supremacy, as we call it, still. But of course, they come by it honestly. They were coming over from their cultures. They weren't that sophisticated psychologically yet, in a way, in terms of sociology and stuff. So they wanted to escape the king, the negative
Mm-hmm.
side of the king. They wanted to become and found their own communities, and
Mm-hmm.
every man and woman a king, if you get to the earlier part of the last century with Hugh P. Long. But that's the American dream. That's the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
That's the system of laws and governments that actually is the recipe. And you heat the oven to 345 first, and you let it heat, and then you put it in and you time it, and you have to do it. But you get a recipe, and our recipe for democracy is laid out, but it's not perfect, and it is a mess. It presumes a mess.
Yeah.
Fantasy that you're going to escape the archetypes and the instinctual self, because archetypes, instincts are archetypal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Breeding and mating and all of this, it's all there. It comes with flesh, but we have this new brain, which is sort of make symbols of it, and we organize societies around it, and we wage war according. We used to wage war according. There's a war college in Pennsylvania. I was so shocked when I saw that hitchhiking in the sixth in the 70s. We have a fucking war college, dude. Because I'm afraid our hair was blowing in the wind as the cars wouldn't pick us up. But but we go to war. But peacemaking is part of war college. You go there to what's war is to come to end the conflict. Now we're back to here, but the melting pot, the alchemical vessel, the pressure cooker. I don't know if people still cook with pressure cookers, but I cook with mine. It's a quick meal, but it's pressure, and you don't take that top off or boom.
Right. You mentioned white supremacy, so I'm going to kind of go in that direction right now. Trump has tapped into this this kind of collective idea, right, of this fear. It's a fear-based thing, this idea of great replacement, right? By the black and brown people wiping out the whites of tomorrow, and they don't see themselves as needing or wanting the same thing. Now, it's so weird because historically, when, say, after Reconstruction, the poor blacks or the freed men, the freed slaves, they had more in common with the poor whites than they did, right, with the rich people. But somehow the poor white people were convinced that they had more in common with the rich whites, right? So that they could kind of, not have too many people with interests that were opposite the rich elite. So I feel like this is indeed the thing that is playing out, and that he has the most interest in disrupting. And also, he is the representative of the last white stand of America. Like he is calling for all of these people.
Amen to the word last.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like there's two realities playing out right now. One that's made up in Trump's mind and his regime, along with what's really happening. Like the people who are going to be suffering the most are the most likely the people that voted for him in the MAGA group. And they don't realize that yet. Do you think that this might eventually be realized?
Well, let's pray so. It's now or never in a way. Maybe just to speak in the present moment, it feels like that. It's urgent because it is a big clash, and it's an ancient clash. Because Hitler and Trump, whose model is Hitler in Il Duce, and he would deny it, of course, but according to his first wife, he kept a copy of Mein Kampf by his bedside. I believe that, but I don't know if that's verifiably true. I wouldn't doubt her in a way because she had to live with Trump and Hitler. So, but be that as it may, the archetype is still there of the primitive potentate, the all-powerful Oz, if you will. So it's anxious. See, this is like the hierarchy in animal world. There's the alpha males, the alpha females, and then all the betas who follow, and then all the appeasement. You watch horses. There's an alpha horse, a stallion, or an alpha mare, and the others follow. But when they're around the alphas, they do what's called appeasement gestures. They turn their head away. That's them saying, "You're the king, you're the queen, you're the alpha." But it's I'm not going to take over.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. So, but it's built into nature. And it's part of survival of the fittest, this kind of thing.
Right.
And of course, where you live, your area, who you are, your group, your people are the superior people. And I mean, if you think on that primitive level, it's your species level.
Right.
And so we've got Trump, who over from Germany. Hitler was there, but it was really a reaction to even Europe and the world wars were a reaction to where each nation, were their own territory. But as more and more power was gained via weapons and industry and all of this stuff and identity, so there was a lot of territorial battles because what is all war but a conflict over territories, a conflict of opposites. So go back then to some centuries past, and when people are coming over, they're bringing all that with them.
Yeah.
And they were white. I mean, they had flavors of white. They were Spanish whites. Christopher Columbus was Jewish. He was a Jewish businessman.
Huh.
but the queen hired him, because there was the new land.
Yeah.
They had discovered that the world wasn't flat. This was not too long ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, right? I mean, think about it. We just assume it, but this was all new knowledge, and they didn't know if they were going to sail off the edge of the
Yeah.
world. But meanwhile, said that someone had discovered India, and they wanted to get just a little quick sum of history. Columbus, those guys were on their way to India. They wanted to find their
Right.
way to India. Prior to that, back at the time of Jesus, even 1,000 years before the time of Jesus, or 2,000 years ago, there was the Silk Road
Mm-hmm.
from the Middle East and down from Europe over to India, but trekking across the wide continent there. But now they started to sail. They wanted to find a quick way to sail so you could load up
Right.
more
Right.
cargo that way, blah, blah, blah. So, but this is all new. What we're thinking is really new in terms of human awareness and consciousness. But all this is coming over to America.
Mm-hmm.
Going to
Mm-hmm.
escape the king. We have the king with the archetypes. We don't escape the archetypes. They're just built in. Their archetypes are part of our nature. They're built into our psyche. And there's the positive side, and there's the dark side.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
the conscious side, because positive would be conscious. And then there's the dark side, would be the unconscious is driving the consciousness of the one who wants to be king. It's
Mm.
about power.
Right.
Jung referred to that as the power devil.
Hmm.
When Jesus started his ministry, he got baptized by John the Baptist, and this began his official ministry at the age of 30, and he died at 33. But he went off to the wilderness, as people were wont to do back then, to meditate and fast, because he was a good Jew. He was going to meditate and fast, and he knew he had some big messianic calling. And while he's fasting, along comes the devil, or
Mm.
Satan, in the New Testament story, and he tempts Jesus with three temptations. All were temptations of power. Well, if you're really the Messiah, why don't you just take over the whole world?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're the
Mm-hmm.
Messiah and you have the power. If you're really the Messiah, jump off the mountain and then land without dying.
Yeah.
And then the third temptation, this is the one I probably need to work on myself, because I always blank on this one. But there's a third one. But Jung says they were all temptations of power.
Yeah.
Because if you're God, the all-powerful laws, almighty. But if you're God, God is all-powerful. We anthropomorphize God. God
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is, of course, especially relationship to human beings. But so the temptations are there of power. So of course, any politician, including the local council person or woman, or man, or there, you can use your power for good and for not so good, or for evil. And that's why you
Yeah.
want politicians who are aware of the notions. There's not just a notion, but the reality of the shadow. So um, the trickster archetype, that goes back to Hermes or Mercury in Greek mythology, or in the Native Americans of the Midwest. I think it was the Lakota Sioux, or one of those indigenous groups.
Mm-hmm.
Their trickster was a rabbit. The
Oh,
rabbit is,
really?
you get Bugs Bunny. The trickster.
Uh,
Bugs Bunny is a trickster, but their
yeah.
name for their trickster was Nana Bojo, which I think is a great name for a trickster.
Ah,
And
yeah.
so the trickster archetypes all over the world. Yeah, Brer Rabbit stories. The Brer Rabbit, of course, I grew up in the South, back in the 50s. So it's still, but the Brer Rabbit stories were all African stories that had been told by Uncle Remus, someone who made them more contemporary for the Americans of that time. But they're all
Mm-hmm.
trickster stories. Please don't throw me in the briar patch, or don't touch the tar baby, but all about getting tricked, tricking people to get your way and to escape danger and evil.
Now, is there also like a humor behind the trickster? Does he use
Oh
humor?
yeah, humor. Well, okay, now I remember in 2015, when the rumblings were there, and Trump was already talking about it, ahead, but I was really paying attention by then. And it all started in my home state and in my home city of South Carolina, Greenville, South Carolina.
Oh,
Don't
really?
get me going. I'm up
Mm.
here because I had to get out of this. They might have, but remember, all suddenly there were these evil clowns would just show up. they'd step out into a street. And in downtown Greenville, there was an apartment complex, and it was mostly black folks living in the apartment complex. The kids would play in the woods because there's a little river that runs through
Yeah.
Greenville. Very beautiful city.
Okay.
It's built up like a lot of cities now. But suddenly the kids came screaming, shrieking back because they had seen an evil clown.
Really?
Yeah, no, this is, you can Google it, there's
Huh.
videos about it. But suddenly all over the nation, these evil clowns began synchronistically began to pop up.
Wow.
And the moment I began to hear and see and read about that, I thought, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is the trickster.
Yes, that's a manifestation for sure.
And Mercury, I mean, he's subject to his own medicine. He's a shapeshifter. Trump
Mm.
is a masterful shapeshifter. He can turn evil into good,
Yeah, I
and he
know it.
knows how to manipulate. But the story that I love about that really tells you the problem with Mercury is that he's subject to his own tricksterish. So he can shapeshift. So he'll shapeshift, and his dick will be on his head, and his ass will be on his mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's subject to his own medicine. It's never stable except for the volatility. And this is how you keep people worked up and insecure too. But you're going to promise to come in as the trickster clown. Now you guys can disagree with me, whatever, but I'm painting a picture of how this is why the clown archetype is so prominent
Yeah.
and it's ancient. Because
Yeah.
remember the king's fool?
Yes.
The
Mm-hmm.
fool can
Jester.
insult the king and do all
Mm-hmm.
of that and keep his
That's
head.
right.
He might
Yes.
lose his balls because they were all the
Yeah.
eunuchs, but you get to keep your head. But he could get away with it. No one else could do that. No one. That's a clown.
Yeah. So this is interesting. He's playing along with the king and the court jester.
Right. But this is how the archetypes kind of all
Yeah.
mix in a way. We tease them apart.
We're talking about this, and I know that you took a look at some of his recent AI videos, and this is also we've talked about AI before, where it almost feels like something like not natural about the alchemy of AI, right? It's like there's no effort and you get all this amazing stuff on the output with so little effort put in. It doesn't seem like it could be stable in a natural world, right? So he's playing around with this. To me, that's his medicine, right? It's like, and he's just showering it upon everybody. And the big thing recently was that the No Kings 2 protest. I literally was speaking with, and I love him, but a cousin of mine who was completely convinced that Antifa was completely in the heart, and he's so smart, but completely convinced that Antifa, the make-believe terrorist organization that he thinks is behind everything, which is really anti-fascist. I mean, that's really what, if you want to be specific, yes, there are a lot of organized groups that are anti-fascist. I mean, if that's
so it is
Antifa.
Antifa. I'll own Antifa proudly. I'm
Yes,
anti-fascist.
exactly. But the thing is, we're not terrorists, right? We're not violent. There's so many trainings that go into the non-violent, peaceful demonstration, because that's what traditionally
Not according
fascist.
to Trump, though. We are dangerous. He refers to the Dems and anybody who's not with them as fascists because that's the volatile language. This is the trickster. They've been really, really, the Dems need to wake their up.
Yeah.
He's a masterful, and the people behind him, they use language in a tricksterish way.
Yes.
And they reverse anything that they accuse the Dems of, they're doing, but they accuse the Dems of doing. This is just this is a formula, and it has worked for people like your cousin, who, as I say, they're mugged by, we get mugged by archetypes.
Yes. Yes.
They do. They mug us. They're forces of nature. They're bigger than our ego. They're in our, it comes with our brain. It comes with our consciousness. So he's mugged. We all get mugged.
Right.
Back in the day, get me to a rock concert, I'm up there, and I'm waving my, we didn't have lighters, and I burnt myself with matches, whatever it was. But, it's group herd mind,
Yeah. So what do you think about the latest AI video of him shitting excrement on the protesters?
Did he make the video?
Yes. Well, who knows? I mean, he has a lot of playfulness with AI, and most of that stuff he admits freely to doing. But we don't know because Gavin Newsom also plays around with that, and he has somebody else doing
Well,
it for
see,
him.
He's our trickster. Our meaning, I mean,
Right. He's our
clearly I'm on
trickster.
his tribe,
Right.
you
Right.
know. But he's finally he's the Democrat that's doing it,
Yes. Yes.
and more need to do it,
Yes.
you know,
Absolutely.
and because that speaks Trump's language, and you
Yes.
have to out Trump, but
Right.
consciously.
Right.
I love Obama and I love Michelle, but they were saying when they go low, we go high. I said, no, you need to go consciously low. You don't lose high, but you keep
Yeah.
your values, but you've got to speak their language. And
That's
if you're
right.
going to have a conversation, if I was to get in a room, if they were going to be like the news shows would do, they'll get, the Republicans, and they'll get a panel of Republicans and independents, and they'll get Democrats all there, and they're supposed to kind of have a civil conversation. CIVIL, folks. Let's remember, I have to talk to myself or pointing the finger at myself. It's really volatile stuff, but this has all been whipped up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gotten us
Yeah.
down. We're all mugged by the archetypes.
Right.
And
Right.
this is why we are at civil war.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the problem of the melting pot is we have 52 states. Some are out in the ocean, some are at the end of the continent, in the upper west. But I was watching some news shows yesterday. They said, well, how they were having a civil war, but it's done via AI and the media and all of this. We just it's not. It was easy north and south, or cowboys and Indians, or whatever, this kind of thing. But to have a civil conversation, it's got to be more than, because the archetypes are unleashed. So this is a turning point for the nation. Now you notice happening all over the world. And I won't get into
Yes,
the
it
astrology
is.
that's affecting the entire planet, because I'm not an astrologer, but I watch a lot of really brilliant political astrologers who can put the
Hmm.
politics of the nation together. So we've got a lot of Pluto, we got a lot of Neptune, we got a lot of Uranus, and Neptune's have got earthquakes and massive changes as forces of nature, like tsunamis coming in. Look around, all the floods, all this stuff that people are dreaming and we're having all over the world. So so something big and bigger than ourselves and our little human species is happening, because a lot of species are being wiped out or destroyed or are dying of suffering. Yeah, so of course you're going to take opportunities. Everybody does. I mean, everybody and their mother just painting broad strokes. They're online, and there's many YouTube accounts now, and everyone's doing their thing, and you can make money on it. But there's Tick and Talk and all this stuff, but it's all media. There's very little print media, but so the empowerment of the AI. But we're back to power,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the computer, the an aside, but an important aside, is all of our new technology has infantilizes us. This is
Yes.
the dream. What do you want? You want what you want, and you want it now.
Now,
I hear
right.
Jim Morrison and one of the, we want the world and we want it now. He's saying in
Right.
the late 60s.
Yeah.
This was the 60s generation. But the fantasy of the infant, they want instant gratification. Change my diaper or give me the cookie now. But it's but this is just the magic. And now I don't have the swish devices, but now you go like this, and I just look at it and I say, all these people walking around, it's instant gratification.
I
It
know.
entrains us. Our inner infant is very much
Yes.
involved.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's regressive, and we're dependent on it. Now we have generations now born into it
Yeah.
who are dependent on it. They don't want to go hiking.
Right.
I'm painting in really broad strokes, but I've literally heard it from
Yeah.
younger clients, and I'm surrounded by NYU and other students.
Yeah.
Occasionally we get into conversations because I have a stack of books on my table, and everybody else has got 50,000 screens and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
I should just put a bone under my nose and be have a big club, this kind of thing, and just be really. But it's but of course they come by it honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just air to them. But
Right.
the fantasy of instant gratification, but also we have access to all of this, and they're able to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting PhDs in game programming games, because they can make literally billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stanford, to learn the technology to do the X's and zeros to make games, which makes billions of dollars. But what are games? Games are warfare. all games are war. There's winners and losers.
Yeah.
See, it's all this archetypes are underneath that.
So let's talk about Pete Hegseth and his call to the generals. And I felt that that was a big show as well. And I don't know if how much you saw, and I only
I
saw
saw
bits
it.
and pieces.
I
Did you
watched
see
it
the whole thing?
twice.
Oh my God, God bless.
I was drinking bottles of Pepto Bismol while I was watching, and then I went on to stronger stuff. I hid my door key from me so I wouldn't go out into public. I mean,
But it's interesting because his main call out was the enemy within to his generals. And it's like kind of the language that's being used. And again, to me, it's alchemic. It's, you get the highest brass in front of you and you give them some of the code words. And basically, what he's telling the nation is Civil War time. So you were mentioning that, but it's not just in language anymore. I feel like once you get the generals involved, he's seeing who the loyalists are, right?
oh,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you thought about that.
Well, I watched it twice. I remember I really heard it when Trump, kind of does his little weird eye rolls, and he signal. You learn his signals. He's about
Yeah.
ready to come through the what he thinks is like the big secret that nobody else knows, and he's
Yeah.
going to be the big hunk papa prophet, and he's going to enlighten us, the enemy within,
Mm.
this kind of thing. And I literally I wanted to burst out laughter, but I rolled my eyes and I felt ashamed for him
Yeah. Yeah.
because he really
Yes.
thinks he's made that up. I mean, he's the one. Of course, he's been told that, he's heard that, probably Miller or some of these guys. But when he said that, but my first real thought was that you're a fool.
Yeah.
The enemy, you're right. The enemy is inside of you.
You
You are
right.
mugged by the
Yes.
dark Lord Vader archetype. See, there's another archetype, the Lord Vader.
Yes.
He's bugged by it. He's identified. And this is a big thing in Jungian psychology. He calls it psychological inflation. When
Mm.
you become identified with an archetype,
Ah.
and you are the archetype.
Yeah.
But it's correct in the sense that he's mugged like Hitler was, like Stalin was, and like many people, even little local folks get mugged. We be
Mm-hmm.
around people who are God Almighty, in a university or this kind of thing, or a professor who can pronounce and humiliate students. But you get identified with the archetype, and this is the problem. And this is God Almighty Trump in the AI video in
Yeah.
his jet fighter with his crown and dropping his big vats of shit on top of everybody. This is clearly, I mean, this is what he thinks.
Yes.
Whether someone else made it or he did it on purpose and thought it was funny, but he's always sending us these messages that we're shit, we're nothing
Yeah.
but shit.
But nothing but shit. He's willing
But
to shit on his citizens that
yeah,
he's the
he's
king
shitting
of.
shitting on the nation and getting away with it. He can tear up the East Wing and then name the
Oh,
whole other thing after him. So, but it's being mugged, mugged by the archetype of becoming mugged. When I say mug, you're getting identified with it, or it swallows you.
yeah. Yeah.
So this is why you can't talk to him,
Yeah.
because there's really the big key to Trump is there's no one home. There's
Right.
no real self. Now
Yeah.
we could get into his childhood, his early relationship, his object relations as a psychology. It was all about the birth in utero to birth and those first 3 or 4 years of the mother and the mothering, caretaking one's interaction with the infant child. I think everybody should study. Everybody should study it,
Yeah.
whether they're going into therapy or not, or going to be therapists, because that's the key. That shapes. That's the out of that is born the ego from
Yeah.
the relationship. Object means mother, with the mother or mothering one. So that's also the second act of the stage, the culture that you're in. That's also part of the mothering. Trump's early motherings, you can deduce, and we know about the father,
Mm.
but there's real, because when you don't get the right kind or good enough mothering, you don't have to be perfect mothers, but you've got to be good enough. You've got to be a good enough father too. It extends out to all caretakers, a good enough teacher, this kind of thing. But with the mothering, because you're actually growing.
Mm.
ego in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Education, the word it means to educe, means to draw out, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is beautiful. You draw out the person, you draw out the knowledge that is inside of that person. That's what you're educing, you're drawing out, you're creating, you're forming, you're shaping
Mm-hmm.
an ego, a person, a human person. The ego is just means public self
Mm-hmm.
because you've got an unconscious little, I'm going to say it the wrong way, but really an animal, a little
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
Had a client, yeah, was a newborn father for the first time, and he came in 3 days after, and I said, "Well, how's the son?" He says, "It's just a sack of flour," to which I laughed. But you've got to create a person out of that, So he has no self, no little s self.
Yeah.
He has no real self. His self is where there's a zero, and there's a lot of literature.
Mm.
Some of it's readable, but there's a lot of studies. They've studied this. And this is why when I was younger, I got a lot more. I'm younger in terms of my practice. I had been trained for all of this. But boy, is it hard to work with you when you come in with people who've had to grow an adapted self around a hole inside,
Yeah.
a black hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trump, look at his accomplishments. See, he
Mm-hmm.
can't let it go, or he's
Yeah.
just going to fall apart. He's going to break apart.
Yeah. Right.
And it may happen. He may just something might snap, but we see him actually falling apart all the time the moment he opens his mouth.
I know.
You can't track in all of this stuff. So where there's no self, there is no other. This is the thing.
Mm.
This is back to the shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that when there's no real self, there's no other. Every other out there has to mirror. This is the pathological narcissism and borderline behavior when there's no real self or a really deformed self.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't tell the difference, but this is the dark stuff. Then you're in the house of mirrors. Everyone has to mirror you perfectly, and this is Trump.
Yeah.
All this
Absolutely.
gold. You just
Oh my
bring your
God.
gold, and you got to make me feel gold. It all makes sense,
Oh.
So these people are just mirror, 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 mirror. You're the king,
Oh.
but this reinforces this needed and necessary adaptation of growing a false. It's really a false self,
Yeah.
but it's who he's identified with and as. And he's been able. A lot of people are able to accomplish tons of things and make gazillions.
Yeah.
Supreme values. We make a lot of money, then you are of the greatest value. But he hasn't integrated it because he's got to paint everything in gold. It's
Oh
not
God.
inside. See, there's no gold inside of
Right.
him.
Right.
So of course, he's going to wear his gold crown. He's going to get in this jet. And he's going to dump shit on top of anybody. I noticed one of the people he shat on is this young man that really
Yes.
tears him apart brilliantly online.
Yes. Yes. Harry Sison or
Yeah,
Sisson or
yeah.
yes. Yes. That.
Simmons says, yeah, this kind of,
Yeah.
so it's like this, and he is at war because he has no self.
Yeah.
And he can't, even if he's king already, but he wants the whole nation and he wants the whole world. It'll never feed him. He's a hungry ghost.
Yes. A hungry ghost.
Hungry
Right.
ghost psychology. It's the worst hell in Tibetan Buddhism, meaning
Yeah.
there's just a hole there. It's
Yeah.
all a big maw, a big mouth that's just all hunger, and an alimentary canal that just goes into infinity. You can throw chunks of meat, you can throw a planet in
Right.
there, throw a universe in there, and it's still empty. He's an empty cipher. We all, in some sense, we all share archetypes. We all have access to them, but depending on our upbringing and we come in with a kind of mythology or there's some kind of, with genetics and everything else. I had a dream where I reached into some sand. This is before I moved up here, and I won't go into the story, but there was a little bony skeletal hand sticking up out of the end of the driveway. I lived on a hill, and at the end of the driveway, the sand gets washed down from rainstorm. But I saw this golden thread, and I'm waiting for the school bus in the dream. I was an adult, in waking life. And I'm curious, and I pull the string, and it keeps coming. And as I pull something, something's like fishing.
Okay.
And then I see this skeletal forefinger,
Oh.
and then the skeletal hand
Oh
come
my
out,
gosh.
and the thread was wound around the skeletal hand. Well, the skeleton and the body, the former life, and all that. A very symbolic dream, but there's this
Wow.
golden thread that The hand represents the ego. The hands and arms do our bidding. So we
Yeah.
manipulate. Mani in Spanish means the hand,
Yeah.
manipulate.
Yeah.
So we come in and seems to be some kind of second act that we're born into, that we're going to act, at least in this life, and this is the Jung says that's your personal myth. Find out what what myth are you living by, and what myth is living you. And that usually wakes you up, or it
Yeah.
can wake you up. But some people never wake up to it, really. It's just life is happening, and oh, I've been done to, and all of this stuff. So the videos really do reveal, no matter who made them, but they're true statements of the
Yeah.
psychology of this man.
And also the psychology, the shit.
See how full of shit he
Yeah.
is, but shit is the thing of least value. But let's go back to alchemy. The whole goal, the whole dream of alchemy was to find the formula to turn shit into gold. And then so there's all these phases.
Yeah, yeah.
And Young wrote. He spent the rest of his life, the last three decades of his life, he really helped open up alchemy to us, the modern minds,
Yeah.
postmodern. So you see it so evident that with that I was going to call it a dream, but it is a kind of dream image where he's shitting down.
Yeah.
But he wants other people to carry. This is it. See, now we're into scapegoating. He wants other people to carry our shit. So the enemy within is his own shit. It's his own shadow. It's his own. He's being haunted, and the enemy is archetypal, because the enemy, when you have complexes, and when you have a breakdown, and when you have this or that, it shows up. I don't want this. This is it's in the psyche saying, you got to deal with this. And you think you can get away from me? You're not going to get away. And you may develop tics, or you may this, or you may get neurotic. If you're obsessive compulsive, you go up one step and you drop down two, and you turn around, and it's a torment. The psyche's insist, nobody's fault, but the psyche's insisting, and it becomes part of one's mythology when one has to deal with whatever that quote breakup. But it's also the potential of the breakthrough is to turn the complexes, and they're not all shit, but there's always some shit. Or really, the alchemists will like, how do you turn the rough ore, iron ore, you turn it into gold, or this kind of thing, or the coal into diamonds. It's this whole process, this chemical process is going on. We're all living it. And Jung kind of rediscovered it in a way, and made it and put it through the gefilters. I'm in New York, the gefilters of psychology and religion to say, okay, we're all involved in an alchemical process. So, and our dreams reveal this to us, but we're born into a collective. And America, the melting pot, the alchemical vessel of America, is always already problematic, even in the beautiful dream of America being a melting pot. It's actually happening.
Yeah.
That's the good news. So the good news out of all of this is that if we can withstand and keep the container, the union, which means one, e pluribus unum, keep the many and the one, and many is the one strength. But it's a volatile mix. It'll never be smooth and easy peasy with one white race and get rid of everybody else, or have them work for you or slave for you. That's just that's old world. That's old school. That's the thing.
It's like this fantasy and this drive that is really the main motivator of every action that he's taking. It feels like it just can't exist in this world of today. And so it's like this anachronistic experience, right? It's like we're in the modern time, but he keeps wanting to push us back to this.
It's regressive
time. It's regressive. And that's what I saw again as the excrement. It's like you're regressing back to when you were 2 years old.
Well, not even 2 years old. You're an infant. You're just a sack of flour who shits a sack. Like my client, he's a sack of flour. But that's what you do.
Yeah, and I can't help but think that he took the wrecking ball to the East Wing, like just 2 days after.
That was
no
direct. on purpose, fuck
Oh,
you
yeah.
to everybody.
Absolutely.
He was going to have his way. He was going to tear down the East wing. The East is associated with enlightenment archetypally. The sun comes up in the East. Fuck
Mm,
you and your East wing.
right, right.
Get my bulldozer.
I'm definitely realizing that there's just absolutely no redeeming Trump where he is at right now.
And that's the reality check. You have to
Yeah.
accept that. There's no redemption.
No,
You can
there
pray
isn't.
for it, but you can't create it.
No, you can't. And I want to bring up this quote that Lavin mentioned in the podcast about a quote from Winston Churchill, where in 1935 he said this about Hitler. He wrote it, and I want to speak about it because I think that it's important to realize where we are right now and where we were even when this podcast was done like 9 years ago.
And
Okay,
I want to
so
hear
it's
why you
like
think that too. I want to hear that.
okay. So he says, we cannot tell whether Hitler will be the man who will once again let loose upon the world another war in which civilization will irretrievably succumb, or whether he will go down in history as the man who restored honor and peace of mind to the great German nation. And it seems as if like Hitler had that charisma that and that ability to pull people in that people weren't really sure like how he was going to use this magic. Was he going to do it in the name of good or in the name of evil? And clearly we know the results of this, right? So it's funny because people who were predicting Trump's, knowing all his qualities from the past. I mean, I grew up with him as a businessman on the scene in the 80s, and I just found him to be completely morally repulsive. But not everybody knew who he was, especially in this country. Like I was in New York. I knew Trump Towers. Everyone was talking about
Yeah,
Trump, right?
I know
So
him.
like not everyone was pulled into his past, but they saw him as this charismatic figure. And I'm really speaking about like the rural American,
Right.
right? That got pulled in, the MAGA person. So I don't know. I feel like as we continue to move forward, I think it's very clear, especially with the fact that the White House is no longer the White House. I mean, this man is on a one road trajectory to demise of our nation. I mean, he has no interest in representing half of us and more than half, really.
Yeah.
There are many
This,
more of us that despise him at this point. So where do you think in terms of, we've spoke about Hegel's dialectic before, right? The thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. I'm just bringing that kind of thing up because you have mentioned that before so eloquently, and that, I would like for you possibly to give me like that summation historically where you think, you know, Trump's synthesis or no synthesis is going to reveal itself.
not all syntheses or synthesis are positive. There can be the
Yes.
dark synthesis. Even
Okay.
war is an attempt at synthesis.
Right.
Like
Right.
the war college, you go to war college not just to learn battle. They send you off for basic training, but if you're a general and this kind of thing, but you learn détente. You learn
Mm,
how to negotiate. Where do you
mm,
compromise? Where do you not draw the line? Where do you draw the line? What are the options? Oh, the nuclear option. Okay, now we really have to get back to the boarding, get back to the
mm,
round table and talk with the North Vietnamese. Like when I was a kid, the Vietnamese War was going, and they finally got the North Vietnamese to consent to meet in Paris with South Korea, and I mean South Korea is another story, but
mm,
with the South Vietnam, with America and other nations there to hold the vessel, the round table, the alchemical vessel, to
mm,
discuss and hold the tension between the opposites. They didn't meet because why? They couldn't decide on the shape of the table and how big it should be.
mm.
So it didn't happen. So but the dream is to the synthesis is to withstand thesis antithesis. So if you say A, then you say not A, that
Mm-hmm.
would be antithesis. Well, no, it is hard to say. And if you can hold the tension between the opposites, it'll
Mm.
really hold and not act out.
Right.
Then out of that says Jung, but it's also it's Hegel wrote about it. I mean, it's been in the dialects have been talked about in Western theology and psychology and philosophy, way back to the ancient Greeks. Out of that comes the synthesis.
Yeah.
And you just can't pull the synthesis out of what Trump was dumping all that shit on you. You pull it out of your ass, but it gets dreamed up, and we don't know how it's going to look, but we do dream. And this is an important thing because when we first spoke on a podcast, we talked about dreams. Our dreams are the synthesis makers. And even when you're writing, look at the image behind you and around you. These are syntheses, whether they make sense or not to the, with the little, I want a painting and I want to see a flower and I want to see a baby. That's fine. That's also, but, so dreams, the creative imagination, capital C and capital I, which is the expression of the archetypal unconscious that comes through each of us individually, whether you're an artist or not, or whatever, you like to cut the crust off the peanut butter bread, or you get, this guy, so, but it's just, it shows up that the creative imagination. So our dreams are the ones that provide the synthesis. And we're kind of living in a collective dream, even while we're awake, and in the dream of America and around the world.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. So we're at the end of a 2,000-year epoch, what we've called in the West, the Piscean era. And the image of Pisces is of two fish swimming in opposite directions. And fish was a symbol of Jesus, ichthus. So the Christian era, but painting, not fundamentalistically, but what was the last 2,000 years is about dealing with the opposites and becoming and having and becoming more conscious of them. Because if you take breath, if you're born, you're going to be dealing with life and death and all the conflicts and stuff. But 2,000-year epoch, and now we are in the Aquarian age, which is a big container of water in the sky pouring out into a fish's mouth, into two fish's mouths. One's a bitter water and one's a sweet water. Sometimes it's blood, sometimes it's milk, but opposites. Yeah. But the container, the Aquarius jug that Aquarius, the man, is one of the few humans in the sky of constellation-wise. But this is the new 2,000-year alchemical vessel in which consciousness is going to evolve. So we're at the end of the 2,000 years of Judeo-Christianity and other religions and all that, which is about good and evil, but we've also grown logic, we've also done archetype. All of our civilization is really, really advanced. We have our AI, we're doing this. And the old value, see, a new value, see, the star is born in Bethlehem, that star represents the new value, the new consciousness. That's what Jesus and the star represents.
Yeah.
The Buddha, see, Buddha's name means wake up.
Yeah.
New consciousness. You have it around the world where there's this wake up consciousness.
Yeah.
Now we're in a wake up place.
Yes.
Because we have the capacities to really do I am become death, the destroyer of worlds with the atom bomb, with the nuclear, we could destroy the planet overnight. But this is our wake up. So it's really dire, but it was always dire, life and death. But with the new consciousness, we're at the end of the Piscean era, which is the conflict of the opposites. And it's just you're not going to integrate. People say, well, you have to integrate your shadow. And I only got this hearing a lecture by a Jungian who founded the Jung Institute at Jung's behest. See, I think German guy, always smoking pot. He says, oh, you don't integrate. He says, you don't integrate the shadow. You come to terms with it. Practical.
That's interesting.
Practical. Come to terms.
Yes.
You got a shadow? Well, Lord knows I got a shadow. You probably heard a lot of it here today. You get me talking about Trump, but and you get their shadow going. Whether you just say Joe Biden, they're like, we all get Tourettic about it. This kind of thing. So but you come to terms that you do have a shadow. But the fantasy of religions and of sociologists and psychologists that we're somehow going to escape the mind-body problem, the body problem, the life against death problem.
Yeah.
So we come by it honestly, but this is the tragic nobility of the whole planet, but this experiment called Planet Earth, but of humans, is that we have to, we're the ones who become conscious of all of this stuff, and we have to hold it, and we have to live meaningful lives.
Yeah.
And not destroy ourselves, much less each other, and
Right.
live with people who are different. Back to the dream, the alchemical dream of the melting pot.
Yes. Yes.
It's a volatile mix, but that's why we have a constitution and we
Right.
have laws.
Right.
Whether I like what he's saying or whether I like that, I mean, I could have made that video, of me shitting on top of Trump.
Yeah.
It's in me. I mean, I shit on him all the time. We're all shitting on each other. We all have that capacity. None of us are saints here, but this is the problem because we've got that big split between up is good and all down is bad. No, the shadow work, and Trump has a big shadow, but he's the shadow of the nation. He's not only the shadow of the nation, I think he's the shadow of our religions, our Western religions.
Western.
But
Yeah.
the shadow is the shadow, whether you're in an Eastern religion. Look what Indians do in the East, and they got shadow. They go up and out. You get into the transcendent stuff. But how do they do it? They do it via the vehicle of the body, the yoga, to try to connect the instinctual body and not be just lived by instinct, which is more like Trump. And so we're all, and it's all alchemy. All religions are alchemy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
frankly, all politics.
Yeah, I mean they're doing the same thing. They're doing cantations. They're calling upon, using
And,
words to
and you
call
call
people's.
upon the deity,
Yeah.
God bless America, all
Hmm.
this stuff. And please, please, now more than ever. But the blessing would be to was it Allen Ginsberg, the old beat poet, ends a poem, and it's a poem called Moloch,
Oh yeah, yeah. Talk
writing
about the
about
god of
America.
Moloch.
Moloch,
Yes, yes.
Moloch, Lacklub and Moloch, Moloch, like this hideous Moloch monster god,
Yeah.
and at the end he said the poem, and when he reads it, he shouts, "Death, stay thy phantoms."
Mm-hmm.
That's our prayer. One part of our stay thy phantoms, oh death.
Mm-hmm.
But alchemy, the part of death is a phase of the transformation into the gold or the
Yes.
understanding or the synthesis, to bring it back to
Mm-hmm.
its synthesis. That death is a phase. It's called mortificatio.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a literal phase. And I don't have time to go into all the phases of alchemy, but there's a really good book by Edward F. Edinger. He's considered to be the American Jungian.
Nice.
He was the analyst of my analyst.
Oh yeah?
And so when I work with you or other people too, and I ain't nothing like Edward Edinger, nor like Dr. Elder, who was his protege, really. You're still, so okay, so I'm going to do a little boasting, although I'm not worthy of it, and I mean that too. But there was, okay, so George Elder, my analyst,
Okay.
then Edinger, who was analyzing Elder, and then Esther Harding, who helped found with Edinger the New York Institute of Jungian Institute. Esther Harding was analyzed in a protege of Jung's. So there's a Jungian lineage here. And I
Wow.
say that because
Truly.
of the alchemical stuff. But getting back to the alchemy, so Edinger's book is called The Anatomy of the Psyche.
Mm,
The subtitle's Alchemical Symbolism in Psychotherapy.
nice.
So what I'm doing and talking about it, we're kind of therapizing, but this is kind of loose ends, a whole lot of loose ends and loose threads to tie up in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that we're in the and a lot of the alchemical phases are parsed apart, is separated so we can understand them. The
Yeah.
first is called nigredo, or the blackening or the darkening,
Mm.
from the Latin niger, dark, black,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the crushing. It's like if you have to crush something in order to cook it. The whole process of alchemy is cooking something to get to the pure gold
Yeah.
or the permanent water. All these different archetypes. That means so. There's the crushing, and we're in a crushing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the some of the alchemical phases happen all at once. But
Mm.
clearly, see the destruction of the East Wing, the destruction
Mm.
of our democracy, or the
Yeah.
really that's the crushing and the breaking down, and then the separati. There's a whole lot of there's the solutio, the dissolving of that which is you break it down, and then it turns into powder. Then you dissolve it in the water and turn it, and then there's the fire, which kind of alchemizes and cooks it down to a a little something or other. So there's all these different phases. But the nation right now is in a very, and hopefully this can be a way to hold the madness. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're in the pressure cooker and you're one piece of all the other volatile mix, this is get me the hell out of here. This
Yeah.
but it's a painful, destructive. But you're being cooked. You're being purified so that you can eat the raw. You change the raw into the cooked and the edible. That's another myth. Oedipus.
Yeah.
But the edible and the edible. So the raw and the cooked. So alchemy is about that whole process of cooking, and psychotherapy, religion, all kinds of things is a way of cooking our raw instinctual, come by it honestly, id selves. We must honor the animal that we are,
Yeah.
consciously so, and not condemn it so much as we've had to do. Our religions have just had to do that so that we can now begin to turn with mercy toward and return to our bodies, to our
Mm-hmm.
instincts, and then be conscious enough not to launch the missiles, or not to tear down the East Wing, or not to fill in the blank in Europe or wherever it's happening.
Yeah.
So our consciousness is the key.
Yeah.
Not perfect, it doesn't have to be. But the alchemical container of the USA, which is actually happening in a lot of places around Ukraine, Russia, the Euro group, the Europeans got together, European nations, as a chemical container, as a container, an
Yes.
alchemy container to keep themselves preserved with all the volatility, the fire, and all the
Yes.
crushing that's going on around. But something's trying to happen. It's a transmutation of consciousness. Symbol literally means to throw something across.
Yeah.
So the symbolic, see the symbolism of all of this volatility is something is consciousness is trying new and helpful. The synthesis is trying to come from this conflict of the opposites, but we
Yes.
have to withstand it and not destroy the whole laboratory of the experiment.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's what I see, and we both see. And, this American experiment never got realized that it's being destroyed. But I feel, having had experience with like my human rights being torn a- torn away from me for many decades, and then kind of gaining it back, it's almost as if we as Americans have the story, but we never lived through what it is to earn our own democracy on our own land. We've never done that. And I feel as though something may be even better on the horizon, but we must go through it to get to the other side.
Right.
And right. And so dreaming new dreams is not easy, but it has to be.
Yeah, Jung said that meaningless suffering
Mm,
is hell.
yeah. Yeah.
But if you can find the meaning in the
Yes.
experience of hell, then you're no longer in hell.
Right.
It's meaningful. Now, the Civil War was the wake up,
Yeah.
at least for white America,
Yeah.
North and South, but it wake up for white people. The slaves were already awake, and the indigenous people were already awake.
Right.
But in terms of a nation and forming a nation, which is what they did, and then the War of the States and the colony of the 13, all that stuff, that was the big that this was just like on the blackboard. This is the issue, and this is what's got to be worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And also the dream of the melting pot, which maybe they didn't come over with in the sense it was just they were going to come, individual people would come over. But you now the issue really is that people have come in the last century that we were born in. People from all over the world really flooded in from all these different cultures and religions and languages and customs and
Mm-hmm.
ways of doing it and all of that stuff, because the melting pot invites that.
Yes.
But the problem is This is the dream. This is actually the actual dream of America. And we had a big wake up with the Civil War. And then, of course, oligarchs and power and money and all of this stuff and who deserves what and who's top dog, who's low dog and all that white trash South and all that, whatever it may be. But now we have the problem is really complicated because we have people from all over the world. I walk out my door in my building. I'm in the UN. And
yes.
I love it. That's why
I love
moved
it.
here.
Right.
But people don't want it. People who don't know it, who don't live in it, or if you're living out in the West or in the South, and I lived in North Carolina, there are little hollers there full of people, are called hollers, but it's just what they know. And the outsider archetype is operative, and the outsider is evil and dangerous because it does change things.
It does, yes.
We're not in Kansas anymore. Right. That's another alchemical movie of America.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If you think about it, she's in Kansas, and then along comes the unconscious, the tornado, and the witch is going to stir things up, with her little instinct, Toto, her little dog instinct, the instinctuals with her, and all she encounters is the lion and all of these flying monkeys. It's all about it and all that, but the mighty Oz, and they're all afraid and all that. I mean, there's another dream if you treat it. It's a myth. It's an American myth. And now it's really, really complicated. Be careful what you ask for. Complicated, but it's the beauty of the culture. But Trump is a regressive throwback, and there are a lot of people who are frightened because, one, back to the shifting, we're coming out of Pisces, where the opposites are swimming, and we're having to find some way to find a synthesis out of the opposites. And democracy is an attempt at that synthesis. It's not over yet, but it's problematic. And now we have a United Nations, and now we are one world. You can see we have to expand our container and our understanding so that we can all, what was his name? The guy that got beat up in California, that black man was beat up. Can we all get along? We have to learn how to get along with each other, not conform to each other and become like that person or that nation, but we got to find a way to live in the alchemical vessel with an atmosphere. Third rock from the sun, and God knows ain't no end to the universe. That kind of thing. But so Aquarius is going to be the next 2,000 years, which is where there is an alchemical container, and that's a jug. That's all the stuff in the jug is the stuff that's been in there from Pisces. We're now in this age where we're going to have to allow the two streams of water, the bitter stream and the sweet stream, the blood stream and the milk stream. They're not opposites, but we're comprised of contrarieties and also of agonies, but this is it's a positive symbol, but it's volatile. That's why when you bring a cold front together with a warm front, you get volatile weather. This is our two aeons coming together. And the old value, back to the Star of Bethlehem, we're going to, and representing values, capital V. And so nations and people, their values, and religions are values. But it's the 2,000 years of the 2,000 year of Piscean values, and we built civilizations out of it. But it's going to change, and it is changing, and it has been changing. Since the Renaissance, in the late 1400s. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Now we had the vessels, we had the technology to go and explore and find out the world isn't flat. And then science, alchemy, the gods, science came along and said, we don't need the gods anymore. Alexander Pope said, know thyself then. We wrote this in 1549 or 29. Know thyself then. Presume not God to span. The proper study of mankind is man. So the gods felt, we kind of got rid of the heavens with our sleights of hands, and we think we can get rid of the gods that easily. But as Jung says, the gods didn't go anywhere. They just fell into our psyches, and now they show up as hemorrhoids. Our diseases, he says, he was serious. Our diseases are gods getting our attention. But so now we have the new Aquarian age, and there's a warm front and a cold front. who cares which side is which temperature, and it's volatile. So
Yeah.
Trump is the battle. Putin is to the battle, and it's all over. But the battle is the old regressive. No, we're not going to change our values. We're going to be a white Christian supremacy nation.
Oh.
And it's meeting the new values, which is really what's in the country. We're a melting pot. It's in the United Nations. They want to get rid of the United Nations. Get rid of the United Nations. All of this stuff. It's regressive, but it's going to be a volatile. So it's going to be destructive, and it's going to be volatile.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is about a big capital paradigm shift. Now, you know somebody
Right.
whose cousin or uncle wrote the paradigm, the 18 points of paradigm shift. Thomas Kuhn.
Kuhn,
however you say his name. Yeah, 18, and he laid it out early on.
Yes.
So we're in this, and everybody should read it. Thomas, Kuhn, paradigm shift. Read, and you can read it for dummies like I have to do, but it goes through the phases of paradigm shift in the U.S., and the world is in this paradigm shift. You don't have to think about it too much. Just look around. I remember grew up with telephones, but my mom and dad, there were no telephones.
Yeah.
There was no electricity.
Yeah.
My dad was one of 16 kids, Cajuns, down in the swamps of Louisiana. One of 16 kids with a sugarcane farmer, and he was a maker, and they had an outhouse, a 5-seater outhouse with all the kids. Speaking of shit, and having to clean up an alchemical mess. But so this is the rapid change of this last 20th century. Say we can't catch up with it. Our knuckle dragging selves.
Yeah.
And God bless our knuckle dragons, dragging selves, our hairy jiggly meatedness, with this genius new brain that can create these, but we did it so fast, and we haven't caught up to the rapidity of the changes.
Yeah.
In 1911, in the major cities of the world, in one day, the lights were turned on in some of the major cities of the world. Electricity, and that changed everything.
Right.
And then the industry changed. Along came iron and smelting, and then steel, and along came machinery, along came railroads, and it all got quicker, easier, faster, and more complicated. And then people were workers. We needed our farm workers and all of our workers. We were all out working to just eat. But there was money to spare. So now there's a consumer culture.
Yeah.
So you could track this. A must-watch many times is on YouTube. It's called The Century of the Self, done in the 70s by Adam Curtis, and it's in 4 parts. It's worth watching it over and over again. But what I've just said, this little mini thing, he tracks this last century. What I've just said a little.
Nice.
But we haven't caught up to it. Now look at what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now we're birthing kids into this.
Yeah.
And I have friends that live and have worked they're from here, but they've done the Peace Corps, and they work with the American, Trump got rid of it the moment he came into office, but they were working with the American people who were teaching farmers how to grow better crops and stuff like that. But, you got a remote village in Africa there, you see with the nomads, in Mongolia, they have a radar disc outside of their yurts to pick up the internet.
Oh, wow.
Parts of when I've been in the remote Sierras in Mexico and South America, you see the Aymara Indian people, the indigenous people with their bird, but they all have their cell phones.
Yeah.
It's catching up.
Right.
The juxtaposition of people still living really in another era, who are still walking barefoot or in their little chantalas up the steep mountains up into the high Alps, and their chests are very large because they've literally evolved these massive lungs to be able to get oxygen in a rare atmosphere.
Yeah.
And they're hauling. I saw a guy hauling a refrigerator, and he was about 4 feet tall.
Oh my God!
He had this band. He's hauling a refrigerator. This is it. But there's a cell phone.
Yeah.
Or an iPhone. You can see how I only have a cell phone. But how do we catch up? See.
Right.
And then we have instant. So we're back to AI. Instant.
Right.
Instant. And you get really glib about it.
Yeah.
You just assume it like air. But our psyches haven't caught up to it. It adapts. because we developed habits very quickly because we had to do that to grow an ego. We had to get used to mom's regularity, changing our diaper when I cried. Oh, I get the tip, this kind of thing, or I get a new diaper, this kind of thing. So, but we're in this pivotal and volatile but meaningful shift.
Yes.
Does it mean there's not going to be a lot of, I'll say it the wrong way, but truthfully, a lot of loss of life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it mean war? Yes, because it's a conflict between fundamentalism,
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
fundamentalism around a constitution,
Mm-hmm.
although I think there are some good fundamentalism too, because they're about fundamentals. There's some
Right.
basic things.
Yeah.
But fundamentalists want to, this is it. This is the one almighty scripture in God, or if you're this religion or that religion. But if when it becomes monolithic, and
Mm-hmm.
lith means stone, rock,
Mm-hmm.
petrified. See, it becomes petrified. I refer to a lot of, since I grew up in Christian fundamentalism down south, and it's everywhere around the world, whether you're Islamic or whether, I mean, there are fundamentalist Buddhists, which is always
Yeah.
a real contradiction in terms to me. But I refer to them as the barnacled piers of fundamental. You go into the beach, and you see the old pier used to be there that would go out into the ocean, but the pier is long gone down. But there's that one big
Yeah.
pylon there, and it's got barnacles all over it. It's like it's in
Right.
the water, it's in the unconscious, it's going back into the unconscious.
When you take it all apart and you stretch it out on this timeline and you see it in terms of epochs and ages and,
Exactly.
consciousness in growth,
The
right?
evolution of consciousness. It's still evolving.
Right. It just makes it a lot easier to digest because then it's not so scary. It feels like, okay, we have to walk through this, but
We
so
come
many.
to come to terms with it.
Yes, come to terms with it. Come to terms with our shadow, right? Like it has to be the case. And not for anything, but we've lived very comfortably here in America for many, many years. And people are watching internationally, and they're rooting us on. They are rooting us on. But, this is our show right now. We have to, come in and do a good finale. And if that's just continuing little by little, plugging away at this game that we're playing, which is just holding the line so that this guy stops crossing it, then so be it. And I think I mentioned this. I don't think we mentioned it in the recording, but before we spoke about how I've been very troubled by a lot of, say, the liberals or Democrats who are putting down things like the protesting efforts. And I would just say to them, just to wrap this up, there is a reason and there's a purpose behind making meaning of the moment. And if we
Yes.
could just remember that during this time period, no matter what happens, during this time period, we were out there, we were holding our signs, we were the dissidents to what is today. Like maybe it goes totally terrible for another 50 years. Who knows? Right. But we could say we fought it.
Yeah.
And I just want people to remember that. I mean, I just want to give like a little shout out to the No Kings 2 events because it was 2,700 locations and 7 million, which is 2 million more than the last time.
Yeah.
And they only need 11 million for it to be like a 3.5% of the population where it really makes that big of a difference. So, do you think that there's hope or are we not on that trajectory anymore?
uh there's always hope.
Yeah.
Keep Obama, keep hope alive, but there's always hope. I
Yeah.
have just a book over here. It's called, the title's Hoping Against Hope, by a wonderful writer and theologian, philosophical theologian. But the title, Hope Against Hope. See, when your Democratic friends, out there saying, "Oh, the vote is," that's what I call COVID 45, COVID 47. See, they're succumbing to the disease.
Yes.
It means he's won when he
Yeah.
gets us painting as a collective. When he gets us there, well, it's just useless.
Yeah.
He's broken it all.
Right.
Then you really you've lost,
Yeah.
and then that creates the real loss that could really happen.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it would stand, even if we do lose and the country has to go through this really terrible uh, decimation and destruction and whatever, fill in the blank, oligarchy, anarchy, oligarchy. then okay, then it's part of fate.
Yeah. Yeah.
But resist. I mean, we have immune systems.
Yes.
This is part of the immune system.
Yes, that's
You're
right.
the immune system. I'm the immune system. Do I have my moments, my bleak moments? Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not preaching anything, but I do the I Ching.
Mm.
The night Trump was elected this last time, I was just beside myself. 1 a.m. It came in so fast that he had supposedly won. I don't think he really did, but I did the I Ching, and I got 2 hexagrams. I Ching with, I don't want to go into the thing, I like a whole other story,
Hmm.
but the 2 hexagrams I got, the first one was called splitting apart.
Hmm.
Because I asked, what's this herald for the United States?
Yeah.
Splitting apart. Now we knew that's what Trump was going to do, but the I Ching, the sage, capital S, and the I
Yes.
Ching, this ancient oracle 3,000 years old from China, says splitting apart.
Hmm.
And the other one was number 26. I think it's called coming approach or coming to meet.
Hmm.
But it was like it indicated there was just going to have to undergo this.
Yes. Yes.
There's no just stopping it, no formula.
Right.
But this is so, and it was saying that something bigger is happening in a way. I'm badly paraphrasing. There's an out. This is meant to be, if you will. It's in the Tao to be Taoist because the I Ching is from Taoism. It's in the Tao, and the I Ching has 64 hexagrams, 64 archetypes, if you will, or processes, or
Hmm.
steps along the way. So when I got splitting apart, I went, okay, the sage is listening because this is exactly what's going on and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, don't succumb. I mean, keep your shoulder to the wheel and your ear to the ground. Keep still in a way internally, meaning get to the center point, meditate, do that which keeps you centered and keeps you connected to all that is, or whatever you
Yes.
call it, the nameless, but that keeps you, and because you're going to lose it. You have,
Yeah.
in fact, he's going out of his way because he
Yeah.
wins that way. So it's, oh no, we're not even going to vote now. We can't. Our vote doesn't mean anything. Well, I understand it. That, and we come by futility, honestly, because we're worn out. He's
Yes.
exhausted us.
Yes.
So the word is replenishment, and do
Hmm.
the things that do replenish you.
Yes.
So
Yes. That's
you make
beautiful.
your spana kapalaba, that Greek Spanish kapapala.
Spanakopita.
Yeah, yeah, yes. And I'm in New York here, but you do, or you make your cup of tea. You
Yeah.
you eat, drink,
Right.
chop wood, carry water,
That's
or
it. Yep.
as a Jewish client of mine says, sometimes says, carry water, chop liver, chop liver, carry water. But
Uh,
so it's our time.
yes, it
And you
is our
come to
time.
terms. Do
Yes.
we deserve it? Well, you can get into the new way. So what did I do to deserve that? And that's not helpful.
Yeah.
You were
Right.
born into this time meaningfully. You may not know the meaning, but you're finding it out. It's like, oh, my dad had to fly bombers over World War II. The son, he had 6 other brothers in the war at the same time. My
Wow.
grandmother, I wasn't born then, but my grandmother was made Louisiana Mother of the Year because she had 7 sons
Oh
in
gosh.
World War II.
Ah, yes. You see,
So,
it's such a reminder, this history that, we were over, our family members were over there, perhaps fighting for the restoration of that world. We didn't really feel the effects here so much, like
well,
the rest of, generationally. We
right.
didn't have things destroyed. We didn't. So,
We
it
had
is
Pearl
interesting.
Harbor and
Yeah,
we
we had Pearl
lost a
Harbor.
lot of lives.
Yeah.
And my mother talked about having 2 children in diapers because she had my 2 oldest brothers right after dad came home on at some leave at some time to pop out another baby. But then went back over to the theater. See, the theater of war. That's an archetype. We can get into the symbol of the theater of war.
Hmm.
Theater. Back to Greek drama. Back, all those dramas. But I want to say, so they were stationed in California. She went home to Atlanta, where she's from, with her 2 babies, because that's where she met my dad and where they got married. and he was at the air base, blah, blah. But she's going to take her train back to California. She was on a train full of soldiers, and she was a very good looking woman. I mean, really a stunningly good looking woman. And there were soldiers about. My dad was a brown eyed, handsome man, I might add. But but here she was with two babies, and she in cloth diapers.
Oh, God.
And the train couldn't turn on the lights at night. They were riding in the train in darkness, and at home they kept their lights out at night because the threat was that there were missiles and things. I mean, they didn't, but they were in war, so you turned your lights out at night. You didn't have a light. You maybe had a candle.
Yeah.
So they really felt it. And there were rations.
Margarine
was invented.
Yeah.
I grew up on margarine.
I
eat a whole lot of butter now, but so it was. But yet, war was. It was a world war, and this was the second one.
Yeah.
And then there were the other wars that there was a century of war, and the weaponry had changed, and then we got the nuclear weapons, the atomic bomb, which changed everything.
Right.
And that indicates the massive shift of consciousness, which is still happening now.
Yeah.
We are at the point where we can do this brilliant, genius stuff with X's and zeros and wiring and all of it. And now AI does it for us. I mean, it's like Brave New World, monstrous side. So now we're back to the kind of Promethean, the negative side of Prometheus, whose name is foresight and foreseer. He could see into the future, this kind of thing. And he brought the gift of fire, which represents consciousness and creativity, because it's creativity, the creative fires. And civilization is a result of the growth of consciousness, this kind of thing. But so we're at this big turning point, because we are. The 20th century was a shift for the whole globe. We're now truly a global culture. Now we know it, but we don't know how to live in it.
Yeah.
And there's still all these ancient sectarian, that side of the volcano and this side of the mountain.
Right.
And this religion, or my God, or that God, or the many gods, or the no gods, or the whatever. And I like cottage cheese this way, and whatever. The little mini wars that go on.
Right.
But this is it, and this is going to continue.
Yeah.
And it's volatile.
Yes.
But out of the volatility comes massive creativity. Everybody, watch and record your dreams, even if it's just holding your phone, but watch your dreams. That's where the synthesis is happening. Not only for you, but it's collective, whether if it's a personal dream, but there is the transpersonal. The dreams don't just come out of you. They're coming out of the collective, out of the archetypal unconscious. And we get messages, we get symbols that represent the synthesis, and also will tell us what's coming. I'm having a lot of flood dreams. If I'm in a car and I'm riding down a hill in a desert mountain, and suddenly an inundation comes behind me and the car's going down, I'm in my driver's seat and I can't guide it, but I know I'm going to survive. And I'm shouting as it goes, here we go, here we go, here we go, like I'm on a roller coaster. And we're going down into a valley, but it's like, okay, I think I'm going to survive this, at least in this dream. But see, we're all inundated. Water represents the unconscious. There's floods all over the world, literally.
Right.
It's a psychological and a literal images. We're being flooded by all of this archetypal, instinctual, also warrior-like energy, and we're overwhelmed by it. That's that AI of Trump and the plane and the shit plane. It's an inundation of shit.
Yeah.
It's an upsurging. Things at the bottom are coming up to the top, and this is the fate of the nation and the world. We got to deal with our shadow, and we have to, because our technology can destroy the whole planet.
Yeah, absolutely. Like more so now than ever with the AI release.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say, but really, it's imperative to do your dream work.
Yeah, thank you.
You can do it by yourself. You can work with Jen. You can get my information, give me a call. I don't have to put you on the couch and talk about your mother complex or anything like that. We could just look at dreams, and if the dreams bring it up. But we can be looking for this.
And I'm going to include your link to that other episode where you talk a lot about dreams and how to remember your dreams and all that kind of stuff in the show notes. And do you want to, again, for our audience, just let them know like how they might be able to get in touch with you, or if you want to leave an email or your website or any kind of social media handle?
Well, you can just email me at
Mm-hmm.
all lowercase Falcon Warren, all one word, Warren.
Mm-hmm.
Falcon like the bird, the car, the team, the plane, the rocket. So Falcon Warren at gmail.com. And in
Mm-hmm.
the subject line, just put dreams
Great.
or Jen hyphen dreams
Cool.
or dream work. And it could do little short sessions or a one session if you have a dream that you've been, because we all dream dreams that we dreamed repeatedly throughout our lives, or our first dreams as kids that we remember. Those are significant. They're all significant, but we could do a little dream just to work one dream that's really befuddled you recently, or it could be something in the past. It can be an ongoing thing, a once a month thing like you and I do,
Mm-hmm.
other,
Mm-hmm.
and just call it dream work because it's very therapeutic.
It's just the reminder that, when we work on these things individually and then come together as a collective, we get so much further
Yeah.
ahead, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now.
We're dreaming even while we're doing this. We've been dreaming together, and
Yeah.
people watching will dream and they'll have their reactions. And this is, oh, I'm with that, I'm not with that. That's fine. Great. That's as it should be.
Yes,
But just don't
absolutely.
fly a plane over my apartment and drop shit on.
And drop shit on you.
We got a president doing that for us.
God. Well, thank you, Warren, for your wonderful insights. I always just so appreciate everything that you put forth and your wisdom. And the few things that you mentioned, I wrote down, and we're going to include those topics and titles in the show notes as well if people would like to read further on those things. So
And I
thank
could
you so
send you
much.
a little book list, but thank
That'll
you.
be great.
This is great. But a book list of accessible young.
Yes,
But also,
yes.
there are a lot of Jungians, and there are other folks who are writing from this kind of archetypal perspective. And it helps to really, I mean, I get on a sawhorse, but I know we have to end, but it's like we need to learn history.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a
Absolutely.
good book. I'll pull it off the shelf. He's probably dead now. He's had like 25 editions. It was published, I think, in the 60s. But it's on the history. It's called The History of the World, I believe. But I'll send it to you. You can put it on, and it's a
Great.
thick book, but it's so. I was with friends reading it years ago. I was reading it on the porch, and it just moved me so much
Oh,
that I was crying
oh my
at what
gosh.
I had read. And my friend stuck, "Are you okay?" I said, "It's just I mean, it's in our history. It's our
Yeah.
history. So our history, we come by all this honestly, but
Yeah.
we get the context. Like we talk about the evolution of consciousness, it does evolve. We were dragging our knuckles.
Yeah.
We were, and we started carving on walls and drawing, leaving symbols and chiseling bones and leaving arrowheads and all of this stuff. And we see this evolution, and it takes so long, but it's so beautiful because he starts from the beginning and
Yeah.
he goes up to where we were then, which I think was the Bush Wars.
Ah,
He was updating the Papa and W Wars, but with our weapon. But to understand that we just aren't thrown, as Jung says, is a word from philosophy, tabula rasa, tabula like a play, like a tablet or a
mhm.
blackboard, rasa meaning blank. To
Mm,
erase the board is to blank a board. We aren't born tabula rasa. We're born with the archetypes and the instincts.
yes, yes,
We have
absolutely.
consciousness and we have the collective unconscious. We come in with all of that in our second act.
Yes.
Sometimes it feels like we're born tabula rasa because we have a lot of those moments.
With people who don't want to embrace this truth that we have this collective conscious, they might try to imprint that upon people that we are just blank slates. And I don't think so. I think that this is why we can't make the fullest sense of the time that we're in because we're not acknowledging everything that you acknowledged today. So
Yeah, I agree with you.
again, thank you for it all. Thank you, Warren.
Okay, bye bye. Watch your dreams.
Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.